We did get started a little late. I get the privilege of introducing someone that I have really enjoyed watching on social media as she has come into the CEO position at NABIP. Jessica Brooks Woods is our keynote speaker today. She is the new Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals and NABIP's Education Foundation, working diligently to ensure all Americans have access to high-quality, affordable healthcare and educational tools. She has more than 2 decades of business and healthcare experience, is a recipient of the 2019 Pittsburgh Women of Influence Award, and led the Pittsburgh Business Group on Health for its recognition as a Healthcare Purchasing Collaborative Award winner. Currently, Jessica serves on the Board of Governors for the University of Pittsburgh Institute of Entrepreneurial Excellence, Adagio Health, the Pittsburgh Regional Health Initiative, and the Patient Health Action Network, and as an appointee to the Pennsylvania Health Insurance Exchange. Please help me welcome Jessica Brooks Woods.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Good to see everyone. Hopefully you don't mind being up close and personal in this room. Very intimate setting. I see some friendly faces. Some of my folks here. It's been a great 7 months so far of leading this dynamic organization and representing every one of you in this room in one way or another. And I call it a calling and absolute blessing and not short of challenges. We have been on the front lines, I would say, these past 7 months. And many of you were at Medicarian, so you probably were sitting on the edge of your seats waiting to hear about that final rule. And I joked with John on my team who leads our government affairs that we have been literally on the front lines fighting for our lives and largely on the defense and having to have some tough conversations, some enlightening conversations, many aha moments, and pleased to be able to fight another day, but more than that, position ourselves to thrive in a dynamic way. So very excited about
They're trying to
That's
get
okay. Well, as was mentioned, I have led employer space for quite some time. So I led the Pittsburgh Business Group on Health and represented coalitions sitting on the National Alliance Board for purchasers across the country and have really held that lens for a long period of my career, focusing on employers of all different demographics and centering the voice of consumers and the purchasers as really what will spearhead transformation in healthcare. And recognizing that over the last 10 years, that really very few things can be done without their broker and agent. That's just the reality. Not because they can't get it done, but oftentimes they work really closely with their broker and agent. They rely on them, and there's no one else that gets that amount of time and intimacy and reliance than their broker and agent. Not a carrier, not a coalition leader. There's just no one else that can really meet that needs and be as agile and responsive. And so when I'm asked the question of why NABIP, I often share that reason. We cannot move forward collectively without centering the central role of broker and agents in a healthcare delivery system and ecosystem. That's just the reality of it. We also can't solve healthcare with just 50 to 55, 60% of purchasers being represented. Under the NABIP umbrella, every single life that interacts with our healthcare financing and delivery system is represented. And that's power. And we have to go from an era of being relevant and needed and relied upon to being indispensable, to being essential. And that's the mission that we're on at NABIP. So I often get, well, how do you become essential? What does that even look like? And that looks like whenever there's an issue, you're called first. Before there's an issue, and we want thought leadership, and we want an idea, or we want a position on policy, or a marketplace solution, we're called first. And it also means that we are collaborating with new and unique partners than we ever have before. And we're identifying who they are and who needs to be at the table who hasn't been prior to. We're also holding accountable those that we partner very closely with and we have partnered closely with for a very long time. We're holding them accountable to a new level of excellence and a standard that is unapologetically centered on the right outcomes, financially, quality, accessibility, and equity for every consumer and every life that we touch directly and indirectly. That's what that looks like. It looks like when a rule comes out, a proposed rule, that we don't find out on the back end and fighting from behind. It looks like while something like that's being considered, someone in our office gets called, gets more than a heads up, their opinion is asked, they're being asked for advice, and they are actually seen as an advisor and a trusted resource. It means that we are trusted. And I can tell you that as essential as we are, and we're going to realize that we are, and everyone else around us, we are in a battle, not only amongst the government and regulators, but also our clients. Representing employers for nearly a decade, I can tell you on my personal SWOT analysis, broker and consultants were listed as a threat. And every employer coalition across the country, brokers and consultants are listed as a threat. And you may say, well, why is that? Well, many times there were solutions that were brought, value-based payment models, carving out drug for at once upon a time, tiering plan design, tiering your networks, and many other strategies that have come, biosimilars initially when they came out, that coalitions would have advocated for and pushed for and believed that the savings were going to result in greater quality EBITDA for the companies and definitely quality of life for consumers. And when the employer who was gung-ho about it went back to their office to get it done, and they called their broker and then they went zero dark 30 on us, we recognized there was a gatekeeper that was there that we needed to figure out how to navigate with and partner with. And that's why brokers and agents were considered a threat. Coming into 2024, there was several articles from larger employers in this country that said they were bracing for the cost, the increased cost, the impact on not only their lowest income populations, but the over 40% of people who make $100,000 and more who are living paycheck to paycheck as well. And they were bracing for the increased prices, the hospital charges, and even the poorer outcomes, and needing to know who they needed to carve out and what they were going to begin to bring in. And for many years, we've been helping them make those decisions. And now, the decisions include us. Many employers are beginning to get in healthcare in a different and unique way that ultimately will threaten our existence if we are not on the same page, if we're not ahead of the game, if we don't step up to the things that are mattering to them most right now. So we're bringing new resources and a level of agility. I started talking because the slides weren't up, so I don't know where I am exactly. But this slide has nothing to do with what I was just saying. But since we are here, we have, talking about AI, we've fully embraced AI at NABIP. We do not believe that AI should happen to us. We believe that we should be using it as a tool to work for us, not against us. So we're digging in deep. We're in the hearings on AI. We're looking at the ethical concerns. We're also developing our own tools in-house to be more agile in how we work and how efficient we are, and also how we engage and elevate the voice of our members at a faster pace than a survey can do, or a capital conference once a year and a convention another time a year. We have to be able to hear about your concerns, your abilities, your desires, the solutions that are catching your attention, the challenges that you're having on a daily basis. And when you take that across thousands of people, over 170 chapters, it's going to take technology and digital revolution to do that. So we've begun to do that. We have an app store now, and Your Voice Matters app, which is actually open to stakeholders, not just members. So if you have feedback, you want to give us insight from whatever lens that you sit on, that you're looking from, please provide that to us. If you are a member, the NABIP Instant Answer app will help you navigate questions that you may have. A lot of changes are happening, including the rollout of our Healthcare Consumer Bill of Rights. Any of those questions, you can go ahead and scan that QR code and be able to get insight. So I began to share some of the employer perspectives, and I just carved out just a couple of slides on the fiduciary and financial strategy, since I was asked to more so speak on Washington updates. But I think it's important to center the conversation again on our customers before just going into policy. Because we have to ask our questions, at least we are our policy agendas the priorities of our customer? Like, are they actually excited and energized and supportive of the things that we're going and speaking to Congress and to Senate about, or are we behind them yet again? So this survey by the National Alliance of Healthcare Purchasers was across many sectors, mostly large employers. The majority of the employers were 1,000 or more employees, but there was about 26%, I believe, that had less than 1,000 employees. So it was a pretty good mix: healthcare, education, government, state, federal, local, cities, municipalities, manufacturing firms, tech, even healthcare. And the employer said that their three biggest threats to affordability are what can someone guess? What do you think the three biggest threats to affordability are based on employers' concerns? Claims. High cost claims is definitely one of the three. Prescriptions. Did you read the survey? Prescriptions, yes, that's the second. And hospital prices. So yes, cost, but specifically hospital prices. Employers are more focused on whole person care than they have been in the past. Integrating physical and mental health is one of those areas that they're paying more attention to and putting strategies around. Recognizing diversity within their populations. This is one of the areas that we've had a lagging indicator on this movement of social determinants of health and health equity. We have not been able to keep up with the pace of the employer's demand. They are no longer looking at their populations as a homogeneous body. They're recognizing that people are faring differently in the healthcare delivery system and in their communities. And just having a plan design across the board for everyone, just having the same type of communication style for everyone, having the same opportunities and holding vendors accountable in the same way as if everyone's going to interact with their diabetes and their health condition vendor and their other chronic condition vendors and point solutions in the same way is no longer an option. Cultural competence is a key competency that they're looking for from their health plans, from their vendors, and from you. And this is an opportunity. So they're looking at diversity and subpopulations in a unique way and determining how they need to maneuver. And they don't know how to really do it. They're doing it because they have to and they must, but they're looking for advice. They're looking for new strategies. They're looking for sustainable movements and not just programmatic approaches. They're looking for transformation and not just transactions in how they approach their populations. You could probably guess women's health is another priority focus, and in women's health, menopause, something that we just haven't talked about ever, but working age women go through menopause, so this is a big deal, and reproductive health. These are top priorities. So over the next 1 to 3 years, these are areas that we'll want to get more familiar with and understand. Of course, caregiving as well is another top priority I'm sure many of you have already worked on and are working on. When it comes to fiduciary and financial strategies, less than half of employers are confident in the practices of their financials for hospitals, PBMs, TPAs, and even their brokers and consultants. The areas of highest concern include hospital charges for the services provided. They're concerned about hospital billing practices and the integrity around that. They're concerned around the integrity and conflicts of PBM administration, PBM direct and indirect compensation. So they will be looking for strategies on how do they understand rebates differently, completely, what is pass-through really, and how do we understand the hidden costs. And we have to be prepared. Another strategy they're looking at is separating conflicts of interest between their advisors and how they procure their prescription benefit. And this has been a trend, again, another area that employer coalitions have been pushing for a long time, which has been pushing for independent evaluations of their PBM programs, especially if their consultant or an agent also had a PBM program. And employers initially didn't feel like they needed to, but now with the CAA, they're not seeing that as an option anymore. So it doesn't mean if you are a large broker or consultant and you have a PBM program, it doesn't mean that they won't stay with you, but what it does mean is that they'll be looking to separate that conflict of interest, and we'll have a third party who doesn't have any skin in the game to make sure they're evaluating the value of that program. And again, J&J definitely helped makes that an accelerated reality. So if you are in that boat, definitely expect those. I would initiate the conversations. Don't wait for them to come to you. And that's how we're going to build trust and rebuild trust and sustain the trust that we do have with our clients, because there are rooms that you're not in, and I'm telling you, there's a lot being said. And we are in a middleman era. And for a long time, we weren't considered the middleman, and now we are. So how do we demonstrate value in a unique way? And that really is having accountability, initiating the conversations, and even being willing to have tough conversations that we would have maybe avoided at once upon a time. And this is all doable. And it's a winning strategy because we are essential. No one can do it like we can. No one is connected to the healthcare ecosystem, from pharma to carriers to the hospital systems to direct primary care to medical devices even in some ways, like we are, to virtual telehealth and telemental health. No one is connected in an intimate way more than we are. So we are essential. But we have to operate in these relationships in a different way because it's being required of us. One of the things that in this, I mentioned their concern around the brokers and agents, but I do want to acknowledge the significance of all the employers that were surveyed. Between 43 and 49% of those employers, they said they're not confident in the integrity of their brokers and consultants as it pertains to the compensation disclosures. They don't believe they're getting full disclosure and transparency regarding the net cost of drugs, and they're not as confident that they'll be able to comply with some of the CAA requirements based on the parties that they have at the table currently. So again, expect more questions, expect to be needed in a different way, and helping them navigate those challenges. All right, I think I covered that pretty good. I can tell you it's been difficult when I was on the side of just the employers to get employers to, really go all in on policy. This wasn't a strong suit. They may have signed a letter, but they really didn't want to lead it. It wasn't their industry. They didn't want to be on the front lines, especially when it came to anti-competitive behavior. Especially banks, the financial sector. I come from Pittsburgh, one of the top industries, and banks are like, hey, I don't want them in government in my business, so I'm not going to put them in their business. They didn't want, although they almost felt like they were indentured servants sometimes to the healthcare industry based on how much they were spending in healthcare services for their employees. They really didn't want to get in between the government and the healthcare industry Many of them sat on boards with the CEOs. It just wasn't a place of comfortability for many industries. However, now, hospital rate regulations is becoming one of the top healthcare policy concerns that they're getting behind and wanting to see their partners behind. Hospital price transparency is up 11% since 2022. And surprise billing regulation is up 7% as far as a priority. So I would expect that you're going to continue to see employers getting more involved in policy. And I can tell you at NABIP, we welcome that. We want them at the table. I come from, they're my friends, and I want them at the table because I know together, representing those lives, our Medicare beneficiaries, the ACA lives that we represent, et cetera, there is no reason why we can't transform this system in the way that it needs to go. There's no way. And so collaboration is the way of our future. It's one where we're going to welcome providers at the table, those who are willing, even the hospitals who are willing to be at the table, primary care, et cetera, to be at the table so that we can move things forward. At times we're going to have to separate ourselves from the pack, and collaboration won't be an option, and we have to be willing to be uncomfortable with that as well. It's been interesting being in Washington again this last 7 months and meeting with different senators, and primarily the conversation has been around the proposed rule that was coming out around Medicare Advantage and the impact on compensation. But as soon as we mentioned compensation, they came up with a finance committee meeting to start looking at their watches. They were ready to run out the door. So it was just fascinating to witness. At first I was just, new, and I was watching my team navigate the meetings. And then eventually I said, well, we're going to have to just start talking about something else. Like, we need 2 new talking points. These meetings are getting shorter and shorter. And the reason was they really wanted to hear about how we impacted the lives that they said they were there to protect. They were protecting from steerage. That's what we kept hearing. We don't want people put in plans they don't need to be in that aren't working for them. Steerage, steerage, steerage. That came up so many different times. And we actually did a survey of with our membership to debunk the myth that we were only putting people in plans that were national carrier plans. So we did a survey, and we had a significant mix of regional plans being those that were selected and chosen as the right plans for the beneficiaries that we served. And we shared that data, and we talked about all that we do and what health risk assessments really is and what they're compensating for. And you did start to see the wheels turn, but as soon as you mentioned commission, that meeting was over. So I've been asked the question several times, like, why isn't broker mentioned on your healthcare Bill of Rights? Or why has our mission changed? Our mission has not changed. But our conversation and the way we have it has to evolve. And we have to center the needs of those that we serve, that they serve, and that they care about, and who vote for them. And we can't start with what's in it for us. We'll benefit when they understand what's in it for them. And that's the conversation that we're having moving forward, and that's how we become essential. That's how they recognize that we are essential. So restoring trust is a top priority, ensuring every voice, DEI, depending on where you live, you may not even be able to say DE&I, but we can at NABIP, and we are making sure that every voice is considered, every voice matters, every circumstance and nuance and customization as we lead into a future of precision medicine is understood in a way that we are actually able to solve real problems. And demonstrating real value is our priority. So these are the 10 Healthcare Bill of Rights. We believe that every American has the right to affordable health care, privacy and confidentiality, health equity, affordable medications, healthcare advocacy, quality care, individual autonomy, health education, emergency care, and state rights. We are not looking to have socialized medicine. We do not want Medicare for all. We believe in privatized insurance, but we also believe that these are core principles that should, no matter what type of model you have, should be what we stand for and we stand on. And we believe these are the principles that will get us ahead and move the needle forward to a healthier, more sustainable, and financially and economically viable country. And so state rights is number 10, because we do believe that states have the ability to manage and lead in the unique way that their populations require of them. But we also believe that we need to play a role in holding them accountable to these standards. So again, if you did the QR code earlier, you can ask it any question about any of these 10 Bill of Rights and get more insight. All right. Okay, so the 118th Congress, it has been like a reality TV show. I don't know if any of you watch Housewives or any of that, BravoCon. That is what Washington, D.C. has been these past 7 months that I've been there. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but it has been quite fascinating. I mean, we've avoided how many shutdowns? 3 shutdowns. It's just been, they've kept us on our toes and at the same time not moving at all. It's fascinating how that can all happen all at once. But let me see my notes here, because there are some specific things I did want to make sure. And of course, I didn't follow my notes this whole time. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So, according to the Cook Political report, the upcoming 2024 elections will see 34 Senate seats contested. This election cycle presents both challenges and opportunities for Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are preparing to defend seats in states that traditionally lean Republican, including Montana, Ohio, and West Virginia. The outcomes in these states are crucial as they could significantly impact the party balance in the Senate. Republicans are eyeing potential gains in states held by Democrats that could be key battlegrounds. These include Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, my home state, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Success in these states could shift the Senate majority in favor of the Republicans. On the offensive front, Democrats are looking to make inroads in traditionally Republican states such as Florida and Texas. Gaining seats in these states would be a significant boost to their Senate presence. There is a lot, it's very close. So if anyone is sick, we don't really have a majority, right? So when it comes to the legislation that we're trying to pass, either something can happen that completely shocked you if one person is out, or nothing can happen at all, which is a lot that we've seen. We're not expecting as much movement this year as we anticipated coming in, just because of the level of newbies coming in, the level of retirements and announcements, just the tension that exists in the atmosphere there. There's a long-time lobbyist recently shared that it's not fun to be in Congress right now, highlighting the challenging environment that our legislators are working within. I mentioned the narrowing margins. Congress is operating under a 1-vote majority. So this is exceptionally rare, and it means that the absence of even a single member can sway a critical legislative outcome, which means we have to be very bipartisan. We have to build relationships across the aisle. We have to be consistent with our message across the aisle, and we have to make sure that our relationships are healthy and sustainable, and that we stay visible. And that's something that we've been prioritizing and have had an opportunity, of course, because of the role, to ensure that. But we can't now that we have the final role, we have to be just as aggressive, just as consistent, just as persistent, because of the volatility that exists in the slim majority that exists. So the way we operate, we typically operate through lobbying. So yes, we're a nice mid-size organization, but we're stronger with our numbers. And that's what we tell all of our members. Many of you may not be members of NABIP, but you benefit from what we do every single day. So you may say, well, why should I pay my dues if I benefit anyway? Because your voice is not at the table if you're not a member of this organization, and that we have an opportunity with representing your lives and sharing those lives to actually get more done with you being a member of this organization. The networking and the competency that you build in understanding these dynamics and the players that are making these decisions, you're really at the front lines with them, shaking hands with the folks that are making decisions that impact not only the lives of your clients, but the lives of your families. And that's the opportunity that you have being a member of NABIP. The education and the relationships, I have never seen anything like it. That's our competitive advantage. The skill sets are great, the experiences, the 40 years, 50 years being a part of this organization in the industry is phenomenal, but there's nothing like that passion and that keeps you driven even amongst all the challenges. There's nothing like it. And if I can put that in a bottle and sell it, I would, but I can't. You have to become a member to be a part of it. So, according to the political report, the upcoming 2020, oh, I'm sorry, I passed that. The $1.2 billion spending bill. Okay, so I mentioned all that to say, unfortunately, no specific NABIP priorities were included in this $1.2 billion bill. The final legislation primarily focused on general funding, aligning with the expected outcomes, again, given the dynamics of both Congress and the Senate. There was significant last-minute momentum for a standalone healthcare package addressing reforms in pharmacy benefit managers, hospital billing practices, everything that's a priority to many of our clients, and sustained community health funding. However, the inclusion of these reforms in a comprehensive 100-page bill failed due to insufficient support, leading to its withdrawal, a scenario characterized as amateur hour by insiders. The slim majority margin limits flexibility for substantial year-end legislative packages. So again, coming into this year, we knew there wasn't going to be a whole bunch done. Again, we were, going to close down like 3 times, but we did assume that later in the year we would be able to get some packages through, and we're still hopeful, but I can tell you that the slim majority margins are making it very tough. Additionally, key figures such as Senator Johnson are not primarily focused on healthcare, which is making it challenging as well. However, engaging with Senator Casey, which you saw in the one picture, we've had several meetings with him, would be beneficial. It's been beneficial, and we believe it's helped even influencing the rule in some regard, especially in mobilizing support for healthcare initiatives like telehealth, which is now deferred to a lame duck session. The Finance Committee is actively working towards a bipartisan bill to enhance telehealth services, aiming for readiness during the lame duck session. So when you look at the breakdown of the allocations of this $1.2 billion, NIH received $300 million increase in base funding, so that takes them up to $48.6 billion total. This includes increases in cancer, Alzheimer's, mental health, and diabetes research. The Mental Health Lifeline 988, they had an additional $18 million despite concerns over unused funds. Organ transplant accountability, $23 million increase to enhance system accountability there. COVID-19 funding received $4.3 billion in what is deemed unnecessary funding. Increase to support its operations. Telehealth initiatives received $4 million. It's allocated to support telehealth integration in academic medical centers. And then there were patient matching initiatives, which included about $3 million to increase and develop standards for patient record matching, maintaining a ban on unique patient IDs. The bills for reports, there's a lot going on with COVID-19, and honestly, it's politicized, so there's some countermeasure claims around that. Global and family health sees reductions in funding for global health. So right now, the global health security funding nearly halved, and right now it's about $700 million. That's with the global fund. So that's how the $1.2 billion has been spent. The Energy and Commerce Committee has a series of important hearings scheduled that will cover various critical topics, and our team will be there. Cybersecurity in healthcare is going to be one of those priority topics discussed. As the Energy and Commerce Committee prepares for that subcommittee on April 16th, it's pertinent to highlight that NABIP has taken proactive steps, and specifically around cybersecurity. Actually, there is an announcement today, if you've checked our social media, about a cybersecurity program that we're rolling out in partnership with the Help Desk Academy. is we're excited to launch this new cybersecurity to prepare the workforce of our healthcare ecosystem. So you don't have to be a member to participate through NABIP, but if you are looking for the skill set, if you're looking to influence your health plans or providers in your communities to have what they need to have, which is to secure our privacy, and having the secure protocols and skill sets on your team to do so, we have an education program that is free. It's government funded by the DOL, and we're really, really honored to be able to be a leading drive to ensure that our future of our healthcare system and the ecosystem is secure through the skills that will be developed through this program. So please definitely reach out to us if you're interested and if you're looking to hire this skill set on your team at some point. Also, we're looking at alignment with the Healthcare Bill of Rights. So this initiative aligns with Article 3 that I just shared with you, which is the right to privacy and confidentiality. All right, so the IRA implementation. This has been interesting. So the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has recently issued the first of 2 draft guidance documents for the new Medicare prescription payment plan. This initiative is a key component of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, aimed at enacting affordability and access to prescription medications for Medicare beneficiaries. Key features of the Medicare prescription payment plan: 1 is voluntary participation, so Part D sponsors are required to offer this new payment option, though it is voluntary for enrollees. Flexible payment options: the program allows enrollees to manage their out-of-pocket costs more effectively by spreading payments across monthly installments throughout the plan year. This eliminates upfront costs for beneficiaries so they can avoid the financial burden of paying their entire out-of-pocket cost upfront at the pharmacy. This also aims to make prescription benefits, medications more accessible and prevent delays, and this is something that we do support. The impact on beneficiaries: this structured payment approach is designed to ease the financial strain, ensuring that cost is not a barrier. As we know, we're seeing pill splitting and skipping dosages. This is an issue across whether you're a Medicare recipient or you have an employer plan. This is rampant. It's an epidemic. So anything that we can do to ensure access to medications at the right time is an initiative that we definitely will support. End-stage renal. This has been an interesting topic. Again, has been one that has been a priority topic that we've had for the last at least half a year. So the implications of the Restore Protections for Dialysis Patients Act. The Restore Protections Act, initially introduced, HR 6860, has had nuanced language. So recently it's been reintroduced with nuanced language. This legislation mandates that group health plans provide coverage for end-stage renal disease care, including dialysis. The revised language could place significant financial responsibilities on employers, potentially increasing healthcare costs due to required dialysis patient payments. We have and still have not supported this bill. Not that we don't want people covered with this condition, but we don't believe that it's addressing the real issue. The high cost of dialysis is largely attributed to market control, exercised by just 2 dialysis providers who dominate 80% of the market. This is where we believe the solution should be, in addressing the monopoly that exists in the market that is driving up the cost, not in just shifting the cost to employers, our employers and purchasers, which will ultimately be shifted to consumers. NABIP supports the rights of ESRD patients under the Medicare Secondary Payer Act to access the care they need from any eligible coverage. However, NABIP advocates for solutions that foster competition in this marketplace rather than imposing coverage obligations on group health plans. So just to talk about some of the costs so you understand what we're talking about. From 2012 to 2019, the initiation of dialysis care for privately insured patients significantly increased employer plan costs monthly. Spending rose from $5,000 to nearly $20,000 per patient monthly. Annual cost, the impact has been about $238,000 in the first year of treatment spending on for any dialysis patient for commercial healthcare plans. The answer to managing these costs effectively lies not in mandating coverage by group health plans at high rates, but encouraging competitive marketplace. So we'll continue to say that. We're going to say it over and over again. We need a competitive marketplace. We are on the right side of consumers, but these are not the solutions. And this is some of those times where we have to manage the optics of it, because it can look like we're not here to protect patients, when in reality we're trying to create a sustainable marketplace that actually fights for them every day, and not just shift the costs where we can. Because one way or another, we're all going to be impacted by that. Employer reporting. So on that fiduciary and financial responsibility survey, you can, I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but employers were complaining about all of the laws and all the burdens that have been put on them. This is one that we've been fighting since the ACA was enacted. So we're closer than we were before. So the Employer Reporting Improvement Act aims to streamline the reporting process for employers who provide health insurance, reducing the administrative burden significantly. So simplifying the requirements. Employers can use an individual's full name and date of birth instead of a taxpayer identification number under certain conditions. Effective for tax returns due starting in 2025. Certain large employers will receive at least 90 days to respond to the initial notice from the Treasury Department regarding a proposed shared employer responsibility payment applicable from the taxable year following the bill's enactment. We're looking for easier electronic delivery, so employers will be permitted to deliver reports to employees electronically without needing additional consent forms. And the time horizon for IRS retrospection will align with current regulatory and statutory guidelines to ensure fairness in the compliance checks. Legislative progress, so recent developments, S3204, the Employer Reporting Improvement Act, and S3227, the Paperwork Burden Reduction Act, have both passed the House. Woohoo! We'll take it. These bills provide critical relief for employers under Section 6055 and 6056, which enforce the Affordable Care Act. So the key benefits: the legislation will reduce the number of individuals and the amount of information required in reports, and eliminate the need to collect dependent Social Security numbers, give applicable large employers more time to respond to the IRS, and limit the time horizon for IRS look back in the past compliance. So these are things that we have an opportunity, when I said demonstrate a differentiated value, we know that we're doing this. We know that we're fighting on their behalf, but we have to market this in a different way. We have to brand it because we're doing the good work, and we're in alignment to make things a lot easier so they can focus on the high value opportunities, high cost claims, PBMs, et cetera. So we're trying our best to make sure that we're reducing the burdens that are being put upon the employer marketplace. This issue is very near and dear to me. It's actually an issue that I was on the front lines with, leading the Pittsburgh Business Group on Health in the Pittsburgh market, when the largest health system and largest insurer had some, contractual issues, and this movement to outpatient and increasing costs. So same site of care, same type of care, same needle, same doctors, all of that's the same, but the ability to bill to a facility, really these billing practices have increased costs for patients 1,000%, 500%. I mean, you name it, it's been significant. And cancer is just one of these areas, but name orthopedics, any type of condition, this has been increased costs due to high consolidation. And so we're not adding value, and this is not something that we can support. So the Lower Cost, More Transparency Act was introduced by Kathy McMorris Rogers and Frank Pallone, and has successfully passed the House. Site-neutral payment reform. Currently, healthcare providers that operate multiple facilities can charge varying amounts for identical services depending on the location where the service is provided. So an X-ray or an MRI may cost more if done in a hospital outpatient setting rather than a physician's office. Not that you would have an MRI in a physician's office, but this billing practice affects pricing across all markets. So it's not just Medicare. Typically, the employer market follows the Medicare rates, right? Employers are paying about 224% on average of Medicare. what Medicare pays. So if we can address this on the Medicare side, we can address this across the marketplace and address costs for every single purchaser, whether that's employers, the government, or individual beneficiaries and consumers. And this is one that we are certainly on the front lines with and trying to ensure it remains visible. So our stance has been, while the Act includes important transparency provisions for pharmacy benefit managers, NABIP primarily supports the site-neutral payment reform. This reform is key to reducing disparities in service pricing and making healthcare costs more predictable and equitable. So some of the challenges we're having, the next legislative step would potentially include this reform in the end-of-year lame duck legislative package. However, ongoing efforts to expedite the process through hotlining are facing challenges, particularly from Senator Schumer, due to concerns about the potential financial impact on hospitals in his state. So if anyone's in his state and you understand the opportunity here, please be loud. We have a strong grassroots effort here, but we really need your voices in those communities to step up and let them know that this is a priority for us and for those that you serve in your community. So next steps for legislation, the Senate passage is required here. So that's what we're waiting on. For this reform to become law, it must also be passed there. So this step is crucial to ensure site-neutral payment policies can begin. This has been a multi-decade issue. This is not a new issue. And we just can't afford literally to wait much longer. So we need the Senate to pass this bill. All right. So non-site neutral provisions of this act. So by enforcing this act, this aims to hold hospitals and PBMs accountable, potentially leading to more competitive pricing and better healthcare outcomes. So I mentioned that we haven't been as vocal, to be honest, around that part of it. We have been pretty much laser focused on the site neutral component, mostly because we believe that has been more likely bipartisan, more likely to be, we've been able to work across the aisle. The PBM side has been a bit challenging, and just given all of our priorities, we haven't been as vocal, but that doesn't mean we'll remain like that, because this is a priority for everyone to address prescription benefit costs. So telehealth, this is important. So advancements in this act. So we had a hearing on April 10th, so hot off the presses. Energy and Commerce Committee had a hearing, and the highlights are they focused on legislative proposals to support patient access to telehealth services, highlighting the importance of expanding telehealth access and ensuring quality of care. Witnesses discussed the need for consistent state licensure requirements and scope of practice across states to preserve the integrity of state licensure while allowing telehealth access. The potential for telehealth services in all specialties was emphasized, so making sure that we're not leaving anything out, with opportunities for virtual care and mental and behavioral health, specialty care, and chronic condition management. Testimonies highlighted the positive impact of telehealth on patient access, particularly for underserved populations, and the need for permanent payment, certainly to support telehealth services and address health disparities. The discussion also touched on the importance of monitoring and addressing fraud and abuse in telehealth, as well as the need for reliable broadband access and language services to ensure equitable access to telehealth for all patients. So yes, broadband access is still an issue in many of our communities across our country. So having explored the site-neutral payment reforms proposed by the Lower Cost, More Transparency Act, we now shift our focus to other significant provisions within the same legislation. So, anyway, I'm going to skip because of my time. So I just noticed I only have 15 minutes left. So key site-neutral provisions, real quick. I just want to make sure we covered the PBMs. Contents of the reports. These reports must include critical data such as acquisition cost of drugs, total out-of-pocket expenses paid by consumers, the rationale behind formulary placements, and comprehensive information on aggregate rebates. So we're getting into some some SME stuff. So make sure that you have really strong partners that you're working with to understand a lot of this transparency requirements that we're fighting for. The provisions are designed to create a more transparent healthcare market where consumers and employers can better understand and manage their spending. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. All right, so, well, this one was, if you were at CapCon, who was at CapCon? Okay, at every table at CapCon, I hope I see all of you there next year. We actually partnered with the Patient Rights Advocacy Organization, and in that partnership, they took out a full-page ad in the Washington Post while we were at CapCon in full force, hundreds of us walking to Capitol Hill to have these meetings with these newspapers showcasing our fight in our alignment with price transparency. This was quite a scene. It was a message. It was loud and clear, and it gave us a level of thrust and momentum coming in to the rest of this year. So please look out for continued support. The bill isn't perfect, but it's better than what it is today. And we'll continue to make progress and refine things and make sure that we're working again across the aisle where we can. All right, health savings accounts. Let's see, let's get that. All right, so expanding access, to on-site clinics. This act proposes significant changes to allow the use of employer on-site medical clinics without affecting HSA eligibility. So these clinics, which offer health services either free or at reduced costs, have been shown to improve employee health, reduce healthcare costs, and enhance productivity by reducing both absenteeism and presenteeism. Many employers have on-site clinics, but if their employees have taken advantage of their HSA, they are not eligible to take advantage of better care and reduce costs, presenteeism, absenteeism. So this is something that we're fighting for to really modernize how we're treating HSAs. It's counter to what we're really trying to achieve, which is ultimately health. Under the existing rules, on-site clinics provide significant medical benefits, and we're looking to amend this by ensuring that receiving care from these clinics does not count as having health plan coverage. The Act also addresses the interaction between HSAs and flexible spending accounts. It would allow individuals with HSA qualifying family coverage to contribute to an HSA even if their spouse is enrolled in an HSA, in a FSA, correcting a longstanding issue in how these savings accounts interact. So right now, again, they wouldn't be eligible if their spouse had an FSA to receive care at an on-site clinic. So we're looking to modernize this. It's been interesting though, when we bring this up, depending on who we're talking to, everyone's just trying to get rich off of HSA conversation. So we're still at that level with many of the conversations we're having and educating around this issue. So I think we have a bit way to go still with this component, but we'll stay consistent. Also around direct primary care. I mentioned in the employer survey that this is a strategy over the next 1 to 3 years, and it'll be a priority for employers if it isn't already. So we're recognizing the efficiency and satisfaction around direct primary care. Now that we've had experience, there's been nearly a 160% surge of people who direct primary care practices in our country. So this is a trend of creating greater access and a level of care that patients are really looking for. But currently, it's being treated as insurance and not a medical service. So it's, again, not eligible under the HSA currently. So we're fighting to ensure that direct primary care can be covered as well. All right. I think you all really care about the Medicare rule, but I'm happy to stay the course or skip through. Regulatory is just as important. Again, most of our activity that we're actually getting we're on the front lines with has been on the regulatory side. Lots of calls between the gag attestation issue with the DOL, really trying to understand if they're being punitive or not, or understanding that many of us probably have advised our clients to go ahead and check the box, knowing that there are downstream issues with gag clauses that are still leaving us not as compliant. So when we learned about this, we did reach out to them. We were the first agency to initiate this conversation, let them know what we're seeing, understanding that we're not doing anything with malintent, but there really isn't many options on the form to help us navigate. And wanted to know, would they be punitive and what their intentions were with employers. Sorry, I'm not on this slide, I'm just talking, but this is another example of regulatory conversations that we've had and that we've been on the front lines with. And I can tell you that they're looking for us they're not looking to be punitive this year. That's what they were very clear, that's not their intent. They're not trying to come after employers this year. But they did say that we have a responsibility moving forward to help our clients understand how to contract better and smarter moving forward. So I don't know what next year will look like as a result of that, but this year their intention it's not a gotcha year. They understand that it's not a perfect system, they appreciated the feedback, and they also wanted examples of gag clauses downstream that are still in PBM and health plan contracts. That's something that they were looking for to be able to support us even more. So I guess the call to action is get smarter with our contracting, skill up on that, because 2025, 2026 may look a little bit different when it comes to that. All right, 14th year anniversary of the ACA. This has been a big topic right now. President Biden right now is really has leveraged this quite a bit, this anniversary. We've reflected on the impact of this regulatory advocacy, and we know there has been a lot of significant achievements in healthcare enrollment that underscore the ongoing relevance of the ACA. Agents have been responsible for over 70% of enrollments in the federal marketplace. That's a significant number. We had someone from the agency come to CapCon and share that number, which is the only place they seem to want to promote that. So we just use it and retweet it and do what we need to do to make sure that everyone knows that agents are central to ensuring that people are getting covered on the ACA, both state and federal. So we have historic enrollment figures this year in 2024 with 21 million Americans signing up for coverage. This is unprecedented in the level of participation, and it demonstrates the vital role the ACA has been playing in access to health care. So Societal Director Jeff, actually with 78% of enrollments, Jeff Grant, Societal Director, came to CapCon and shared that 78% of enrollments were placed by agents. Now you may have noticed that articles going around about rogue agents taking patients and their social security information that the federal government shouldn't made it as accessible, and switching them to plans that aren't working for them and taking them from their broker of record who had serviced them in the first place. We are completely against this. We do not welcome those rogue agents as members. We will fight with our agents who are on the right side of this to ensure that this does not continue and that consumers are not taken advantage of. However, what that does do is make it difficult for all of us, and to have that on the heels of this rule, this Medicare rule, couldn't be worse timing. When we're sitting here telling them how vital we are, how essential we are, with how we can't be removed from the model because beneficiaries will be disadvantaged, and then we have another government program being taken advantage of by a minority of bad actors that is putting a stain on us and in making the fight to rebuild trust and demonstrate value even harder. So if you know any of those agents, report them. If you know any of those agents, don't befriend them. We have an opportunity to transform, and we cannot have anyone get in the way, even if in the name of being an agent and licensed. So. I will move on from that tangent. So So the tri-agency rule, there's some updates I want to give you on short-term plan regulations. So the recent changes by the IRS, DOL, and HHS. The IRS and the Department of Labor and Health and Human Services have issued a final rule that adjusts the allowable coverage period for short-term limited duration insurance plans. The rule changes the coverage availability from 1 year back to the original 90 days, with the potential to extend for an additional month, capping the maximum coverage period at 4 months. The effective date for plans sold from September 1, 2024 onwards, the initial contract term is limited to 90 days with the possibility of extending for 1 month, additional month. Plans sold before September 1, 2024, including any subsequent renewals or extensions, are permitted to continue under the former rule, allowing an initial contract term of 12 months and the possibility of renewing up to a maximum of 36 months. So you just heard your window of time, if this is a strategy that you believe is needed for any of your clients. So initially the duration for STLD insurance was set at 3 months with the possibility of a 1 month renewal. Under the Trump administration in 2018, the availability of these plans was extended to 1 year with the option to renew for a total of up to 3 years. Our stance at NABIP we've been advocating for a moderate approach. We thought the 3 years was too long. We thought the former was too short. So we suggested a 6-month period with an option to renew once for a total coverage of 12 months. We thought that was a fair compromise, and that's what we've been advocating for and lobbying for. So NABIP has actively involved in the discussion on these regulations, submitting comments to the proposed rule, participating in meetings with the Office of Management and Budget, which just happened in March before the final rule was issued. That was our last opportunity to push what we believe was the right model. So the attempts by Congress members and Senator Kennedy to hold the final regulation on March 13th was unsuccessful, and as the proposed bills did on arrival, what they were their legislative response. So the implications, these regulatory updates represent a significant shift in how short-term health insurance is governed, aiming to balance flexibility and coverage with protections against extended use of plans that don't provide comprehensive benefits. So that's the update on that. A carrier can issue a short-term plan to a family only every 12 months. This rule is designed to prevent frequent cycling on and off short-term plans, which typically offer less comprehensive coverage compared to ACA compliant plans. So for this, they want to give a carrier definition. For the purposes of this regulation, a carrier includes companies under common ownership. This broad definition ensures that the rule applies across affiliated insurers, preventing any potential loopholes. I will move to Medicare real quick. So on Thursday, April 4th, CMS unveiled the contract year 2025, Medicare Advantage and Medicare Part D final rule. This announcement follows years of advocacy and discussions triggered by stakeholders, including members of Congress, community health plans, beneficiary advocates, media reports. It's no secret. It's been a lot going on, very visible. Key highlights of the final rule: CMS finalized a significant set of actions impacting broker compensation, health equity, mental health, supplemental benefits, and the use of biosimilars in the contract year 2025. These changes, recognized by industry experts as some of the most consequential in decades, require all stakeholders to adapt quickly. The rule introduces a fixed compensation model for brokers. Their intention is to prevent bias in plan selection. The primary concern, as I mentioned earlier, is steerage. Others, ensuring choices made by enrollees are based on health needs rather than broker incentives. The enhanced health equity measures: CMS is expanding network requirements for behavioral health providers and establishing new benefit categories to ensure beneficiaries have access to necessary services. Plans are now required to include health equity experts in their utilization management committees and to report annually on the health equity impact of their policies. Supplemental benefits utilization to ensure that Medicare dollars are used effectively. MA plans must actively market supplemental benefits to enrollees with a new requirement to issue a mid-year enrollee notification detailing available benefits. New rules restrict contracts between MA organizations and third-party marketing organizations, limiting how these entities can collect and share data. This change is designed to protect seniors from aggressive marketing practices and privacy breaches. And you know, the advice is we need to get our own leads. That's the advice. They don't want beneficiaries contacted over and over again. So who we partner with and the technology we use and how we access community connectivity, I think is a call to action for our industry anyway. Being very visible in our communities in a differentiated way, partnering with community-based organizations, et cetera, is an important way, I believe, that we build trust and be able to attract our own leads. Data privacy and marketing regulations. The new rules restrict contracts between MA, I mentioned that already. Okay, these regulatory changes are likely to increase the administrative burden on MA plans, particularly in terms of compliance and adapting to new network and marketing requirements. Behavioral health focus is another component. The expansion in behavioral health services and the introduction of new provider categories reflects CMS's ongoing commitment to improving mental health access and treatment options within Medicare. Looking ahead, monitoring and enforcement. While these changes are welcomed by many, there is also a call for better mechanisms to monitor and enforce these new requirements to ensure they achieve their intended outcomes. I believe they'll be relying on the health carriers to do that. So, you know, I don't know how it'll be enforced, but we're still more to come on what that looks like operationally. The final rule sets forth ambitious reforms aimed at improving the transparency, fairness, and effectiveness of Medicare Advantage and Part D programs. I can tell you that we've had significant advocacy efforts throughout the rulemaking process. NABIP has been at the forefront, tirelessly educating policymakers. We took direct actions. We had congressional involvement. We even did recently a legal consultation and collaborated with a law firm to challenge the extent of CMS's authority to enforce proposed changes, reinforcing the argument with detailed legal insights. We believe that had some impact in the contracting component, allowing FMOs to still contract with carriers. Organized and participated in pivotal meetings with key stakeholders, including CMS's Principal Deputy Administrator, Jonathan Blum, and discussions with the Office of Management and Budget officials in March before the final rule was issued. There was a full-on blitz happening. Although facing a challenging environment with CMS firmly committed to this, it was very clear this was the course they were moving forward with. We did fight aggressively to ensure that $31 was not going to be in this final rule. And although it wasn't what we initially advocated for, it's $100, it's not $31. So we will take that win. As I mentioned, CMS did preserve the ability for FMOs to continue to contract with carriers. CMS did provide important clarity based on our feedback around the definition of contracting. There remains, however, many unanswered questions and assumptions made regarding national and regional carriers. So they clearly acknowledged in the final rule that they value the contribution of agents. Again, it took a lot of education and face time and consistency, but they are recognizing that we are not just disposable and beginning to realize we are essential. And so we are very proud of that outcome. So folks, we live to fight another day, and we have survived, and we're going to continue. I will tell you that if you are not in the Medicare space, you may have not had to sweat as many bullets in the last few months. However, it will come to a market near you if we do not come together. So we must take advantage of being under one umbrella. Don't leave your fellow man on the sidelines alone fighting this fight. It doesn't matter if it's your space, because as we know, healthcare shift happens. So thank you. Please join us. Thank you for having me.